Hi guys! Today's book review is about the Young Sherlock Holmes series, namely the first book in the series called Death Cloud by Andrew Lane. First, let me give you a quick overview of the plot. The story takes place in the summer of 1868, when Sherlock is 14 years old. He goes to a boarding school and is picked up by his brother Mycroft when the summer holiday starts. He tells Sherlock that their father is going overseas because the army employed him, and that it would be better for their mother and for everyone if he stays with his aunt and uncle for the holidays. Eccentric relatives that he doesn't even know. At first Sherlock is bored out of his mind in the countryside, but his brother Mycroft arranges a tutor for Sherlock called Amias Crow. Crow teaches Sherlock about using his mind logically, and Sherlock begins to develop the detective skills that he's so famous for. When two local people suddenly die from plague-like symptoms, Sherlock and Mattie try to discover what really happened and what really killed them. And they do this with the help of Crow and his daughter. They get in all kinds of trouble and Sherlock really shows his detective skills to the fullest, and he even starts to outmaster his tutor. I've been a Sherlock Holmes fan for as long as I can remember. I probably watched some sort of Sherlock Holmes cartoon when I was young. I'm not really sure when I first heard of Sherlock Holmes, but as far as I know, I've always known that he was a great detective. I watched some older TV series of Sherlock Holmes when I was younger and I really loved those. I've also read almost all of the stories and I've read all of the novels and I've read most of them more than once and I absolutely loved them. And when the movies came out with Robert Downey Jr., I also loved that version of Sherlock. It was completely different from the version in the books. I mean, of course, it was still Sherlock Holmes, but he was different from the books that Arthur Conan Doyle wrote. And I completely loved that version as well, and I started to become an even bigger Sherlock Holmes fan. The same goes for the recent, or not so recent anymore, but the most recent BBC adaptation of Sherlock Holmes. It's still essentially Sherlock Holmes, but he's different from the books, and it takes place in modern London. It's definitely my favorite Sherlock Holmes series ever. And if you haven't watched it yet, I really recommend it. It's really good. But anyway, back to the book review. As you can tell, I had a lot of expectations from this book before I started reading it, because I have so many Sherlock Holmes back knowledge. I know a lot about Sherlock Holmes and I have this certain image when it comes to him. So I can imagine that a lot of people feel this way, so it's pretty difficult to create a book that can please to all these people when you are trying to create a different version, a younger version of Sherlock Holmes. And I did expect Sherlock to be different because he was younger, but at first I have to admit the first few pages of the book I didn't really like him. He seemed completely different from the Sherlock that I've come to know, any of the versions really, but pretty soon he started to use his detective skills, he started to think logically and notice things that other people didn't, and he started to turn into the Sherlock Holmes that most of us know. And I really like that Andrew Lane tried to explore where these detective skills came from, but still kept the talent with Sherlock himself, because Crow only gives him a few tips and a few lessons, and Sherlock uses all that and more, and all his previous knowledge and just his brain to solve crimes and to look for clues and to find clues that other people didn't find. And I have to say, I really like it. I can't wait to read another book of the series. So to conclude, it's about a young Sherlock Holmes, even though, as I said in my book haul, he doesn't look that young on the cover, but he's 14 years old. If you want to know what might have happened when Sherlock Holmes was younger, I definitely recommend this series. It's a really fun read and I suggest you give it a try. I hope you like this book review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. Tot ziens!